All right, guys, so let's talk about a few tips and tricks around spreading out our seam sealers and how we're going to accomplish that factory look in some of our larger applications. Now you might be familiar with, most commonly the acid brush. A lot of guys will tape them together, such as I've done here, and use this to create some of those brush strokes. We're going to show you a couple techniques here of how we can use some different tools to get a better brush stroke and make it a continuous like they have from the factory. For this, we're going to be using our 8308 Heavy-Bodied Seam Sealer. As with all of our two-part cartridges, we want to make sure that we equalize it upward into a paper towel. Once we apply our 3M static mixing nozzle and lock down our ring, we want to make sure we dispense a little bit of material right out onto the mixing board. If you don't have a mixing board, you can dispense it into the paper towel. We just want to make sure we get about 2 or 3 inches of material out so that we've got equal mixing coming through that nozzle. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a couple beads. I'm just trying to get material out onto the board right here. And again, we're just going to show you a couple quick tips and tricks as far as replicating that brush stroke. Now, most commonly, you might be familiar with trying to brush this out, create that continuous look. And when you do it over a large area, you're still only getting just that width of whatever your 2 taped together brushes might be, or your single, depending on what it is that you're using, right? So what I want to show you here today is an opportunity to, and I'm adding more material here because this is where I want to show you the actual tip. I'm going to use a spreader. I'm going to knock down my seam sealer first. As you can see, I've used tape because I want to make a clean cut dedicated bead here. And what I'm actually going to use to replicate this is going to be one of our gray scuff pads, Scotch-Brite pads, that I've trimmed down to a more manageable size for doing this. And what I've done is I've just rolled it in half so that it's going to be easy to work with, and it created a nice smooth edge. I don't want to use this sharp edge right here because this is going to create some inconsistencies in the bead. And again, when I apply this, I'm not looking to remove material, just like the spreaders where we're just trying to dragging the material out. With this, all I want to do is add the feature and style lines into the material. So I'm just going to drag it over the top, and I've got a consistent bead with the spreader here, or with the Scotch-Brite pad. Now, another technique that you guys may have seen is a long continuous brush stroke that may be going side to side. So, again, if we're trying to use a taped together acid brush and we're trying to replicate that and we're going side to side, we've really kind of created a mess and we may have some inconsistencies and it may just not look quite right. So, again, what we're going to want to try to do here is utilize that Scotch-Brite pad again. If you want, I recommend using a spreader to first knock it down. This is pushing that material into the surface. It's creating a tight seal so that we don't have any intrusion issues with water, moisture, or air, and we've got a good tight bond. Now we can come in with our spreader, and again, it's going to be rolled, no sharp edges, and we're just going to drag it over the top to create that brushed look. Now, if you need to make it a little bit deeper, you can put a little bit more pressure into it. If you really, again, depending on exactly what it is you're trying to match, this is sort of the basic techniques for this. Now, there's some beads that start off nice and clean like this, and then they sort of brush out at the end. So how do you accomplish that? Again, once you got a lot of material on your acid brush, it becomes very difficult to get that nice, even, consistent look. So we're going to take that same Scotch-Brite pad. If you've got too much material on it like I do here, go ahead and have another one at the ready. And it's just cleaned up, trimmed up. Again, I'm going to roll it. And we're just grabbing the edge. Now we've made our consistent brush stroke bead across the top. And all we're done is just hook the edge of the surface and just dragged it out. Most commonly you see this like on rear body panels where they come up to the trunk trough area where they're trying to knock it down and get it brushed out so that the gasket will clear it without any problems. A lot of manufacturers do this because this is how they create that nice tight seal so that there's no corrosion or water intrusion that's going to penetrate the edges of that seam sealer. Plus, when they put their top coating surfaces on here, they don't have to make sure that they're getting any, they're missing material along that critical edge, and they're not creating any sort of shadow lines or anything else. So, that's 2 opportunities. Now, if you're working on a rear body panel and you've got a long area to go, and after you've caulked out all your material around, say, we're working on like a trunk floor belly pan or something like that, we've just replaced the rear body panel, and we're coming up and around and back up on top of our frame rails. How are we going to get that factory continual brush stroke in there? Again, with an acid brush, it can be a little bit difficult. We're going to go right to the spreader, or sorry, the gray Scotch-Brite pad rather, not the spreader. And we're going to push this in. In this case here, because I didn't use a spreader, I'm actually putting a little bit of pressure on the surface so that as I'm pushing that material out ahead of me, it's forcing it to the surface, and then behind here is where we're adding that texture as it passes by. So, if you're looking for a little bit easier way to create some brush strokes in your application of OEM beads, this is a great opportunity. If you want some more information on our seam sealers, please visit 3M Collision Repair Academy. Also, check out some of the other videos we have here on our page. If you hit subscribe and the notification bell over here in the corner, that'll keep you up to date as we're releasing new content, new videos to keep you up on today's best practices in the industry. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, throw a comment in the section below. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.